Well, Stevie, I must say that is a most amazing outfit, isn't it? It is.
Well, this is an outfit of... the boots are 10 years old, the skirt is 10 years old, the cape is 10 years old, the white coat is probably just basking on a year. The necklace is brand new from Rome. Some of the rings are very old. The gloves are new. The hair is old. The hat is about a year old. I tend to mix everything from, I tend to never buy anything that I don't keep forever.
You remind me of Mae West at the moment in that. Does that bother you?
There is probably a lot of Mae West in me. That swing of her head, you know, and the way that she talks. And she was she loved her figure and the way she wore her clothes. And see, after 14 years, you know, of wearing these kind of clothes, I'm used to them. So for me, it's much easier to get very, very dressed up than it is for me to dress down.
It's extraordinary. So unlike most people, that is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, before the producer starts getting cross with me,
okay,
let us talk about all that time ago when you joined Fleetwood Mac. Did you think that it would be such an extraordinary ongoing success?
No. No, I never let myself expect, like when they released Rhiannon, I didn't want them to release Rhiannon as a single because I thought, what if she doesn't make it? What if my Rhiannon falls flat on her face? Then it is not my choice to release her as a single. She is a mythological goddess of horses and steeds and maker of birds, and she's a brilliant, brilliant character. What if she falls flat on her face? Then this is really going to hurt me, and it's going to hurt her. And so I was very against releasing Rhiannon as a single. They did a big write-up on it in Billboard and said, you know, can Top 40 take Rhiannon?
Really?
Oh, yes. And I was very against it because I said, this is not, you know, this is not a commercial single. This is not, I didn't write Rhiannon for commerciality. I wrote Rhiannon because I loved her name and I loved her story. I didn't write her to be sold. She simply is not for sale and has never been.
But it was a big success.
And it was a big success. And I was wrong. But at the same time, I could have been right. And if I had been right and Rhiannon had not made it, then I would have never forgiven myself for letting the industry put Rhiannon through that. Because to me, she's real.
I've got her on my jukebox. I absolutely love it.
So do I.
And I think, do you know how many people do you know?
I've been singing it for 10 years, you know, so I absolutely love her too.
How many people do you know who called their children Rhiannon after the song?
I have more little baby Rhiannons than you could even imagine, and many of them started, you know, this big, and are now like almost as tall as me. And as I go through the cities, especially of the United States, the Rhiannons, my baby Rhiannons, have grown up right before my very eyes.
You actually meet them?
Oh yes, and I meet them every time. And they come backstage, and sometimes I take them on stage. And sometimes you know, if they're little enough, I hold them, and I hold them up by the mic. And if they're too big, then I just, you know, take them out there. And they understand, they get it, they know. And so, you know, in 20 years, when there's a whole lot of 25, 30-year-old Rhiannons around, everybody will realize where this came from. And that's very special. Rhiannon is not a name, it's Rhiannon. You know, it's not a name that is exactly on the streets. But in my life, there are many baby Rhiannons.
I think that's lovely.
And it's very, very nice because all these Rhiannons are mine.
So what if they all turn up and say, would you put me through college now, Stevie?
I'd probably do everything I could do to put them through college. You know, because I feel a great right in them because a lot of them came from me.
Where do you get your inspiration from?
My life and everybody around me. I mean, you know, if you were to sit here and tell me a story about a certain time of your life, or somebody that you loved, or something that didn't work out, I would probably go right back to my typewriter and write down exactly what happened to you, and then I would put it into rhyme, and then I would write a song about it.
Is that how you do it?
Yes.
You write on a typewriter first? That's extraordinary.
Every once in a while, I will go straight to the piano, and I'll have a piece of paper up there with a pen, and I'll play something, and I'll write. But usually, you see, I keep a full-on journal that I keep every night, that I have been keeping for the last 14 years. So I have about 25,000 pages of typewritten stuff.
You mean you
in
type?
boxes. I type, and I type very well and very quickly. I love to type. I type to music. So I'll put on anybody's music, anyone that I especially like, that has a good beat, a good rhythm, and then I type right along to the music. And people think it's very funny because they'll hear me typing right along, so it's like I'm a percussion instrument, right? The typewriter becomes a percussion instrument for me. And I can type for days.
Haven't you got a word processor?
I don't have a computer, I don't have a word processor, I don't have a thesaurus, I don't have a dictionary, I don't have anything like that, because I'm really one of those truly untrained people who has refused to be trained all her life. I've never taken a music class, never taken an art class, never taken a singing class, I've never taken a singing lesson, and that's because I don't want to be trained. I don't want to follow rules.
How does that work within Fleetwood Mac, not wanting to be ruled?
Not real well.
Tell me.
Because they are very rule-esque, especially the three English ones. They all think that they are straight from the English aristocracy, monarchy, I mean, Mick is absolutely the king. And, Christine is absolutely the queen.
Funny enough, I was just going to ask you whether it's different working with English people.
Well, I've been working with them now since 1974, so I'm very comfortable with English people.
But are they different?
Very different. Than Americans, very different.
Arrogant?
But I like them very much, and yes, they're very arrogant. And see, I picked this up, so people wonder where I'm from, because I lived 5 years of my life in Texas, 2 years in New Mexico, 3 years in Utah, 3 years in Los Angeles, 6 years in San Francisco. People wonder where I'm from. Like maybe she's from Mars, because she has, as soon as I go back, if I go to Atlanta, I instantly go into my southern accent, and people are going, where is this girl from?
Can you do English then?
I pick up phrases like ring you up, or I'll give you a bell and pop up, or these things. I say these things in my own accents, and people will go, I wonder where this girl came from, because she has no stability when it comes to speaking. And of course, I love the English, and I love the way they speak, and I love their kind of formal way of speaking. So when I'm surrounded by my English friends, I'm much more formal. When I'm just surrounded by my crazy California American friends, I'm much less formal. But yet, even into that comes the English, because I'm with Fleetwood Mac so much that it's hard to drop that.
Well, I've known Christine for years and years, and all that time when there was the splitting up that was going on within Fleetwood Mac, how difficult was that to cope with?
Difficult. You remind me a lot of Christine. And Chris is probably my dearest stronghold. She's probably my sanctuary. She's the one person in my life who I can go without an invitation if I'm upset, or if something's really bothering me, or there's something that I just can't quite come up with a solution for. I can get in a car and drive to Chris's house without an invitation and stay there all night. And I'm not a good house guest.
Why not?
I just don't like to go to other people's houses. I like people to come to my house. And probably that's because the way I was raised. My mother never really let me go and stay at other people's houses. She would allow me to have all my friends to my house, but she would not allow me to go away. And this comes from something that she's never told me about her own childhood, and someday she will tell me. And I know it's not going to be a nice story. But there's something about her, the way that she raised me, that said you can have anybody you want, as late as you want, at our house, but you cannot stay with them.
Did you mind that when you were young?
In a great way. But at the same time, my mom was strong enough that I never fought her, because she was unfightable. Now, of course, you know, she's the dearest thing in my life. I mean, and I am absolutely the star in her sky. So it's like I consider her to be the most precious person in my whole life. And second behind her, you know, comes Christine, because Chris has been like a sister, like a mother, like a best friend, because there was many, many years where Chris and I were all alone. There were no makeup artists, no wardrobe mistresses, nobody to help us. Chris and I shared rooms.
Did you find the boys in the band didn't understand the problems about makeup and all that?
They went off on their own and left Chris and I to our own. And even though, but you see, Christine was rather a monarch, so Christine had a lot to say. Whereas then I spent a lot of time speaking with her, and Christine knew me inside and out. And so Christine would take my ideas with her, and she'd throw them in, so that she managed to get over how I felt. Because I was very young and very weak in you know, standing up for myself. And Chris stood up for me.
What's your motivation? I mean, you've had great success as a solo artist, you've had great success with Fleetwood Mac, you must have made an awful lot of money. What's the motivation to carry on?
Love.
Of whom?
Love of doing it. I don't know what else I would do. If somebody said to me, well, you can't do this anymore. If somebody said, you know, you cannot do this anymore because of your health or because of something else, to me it would be like, well, then I would have to figure out another way to do it without doing it in the same way. It's like nobody could ever say to me, you can write no more songs. Because at that point, then there would be no reason for me to be on this planet. If somebody said you cannot write any more stories, you cannot ever sing another song to somebody, it would break my heart. It really would. And at that point, I would have to back off and say, you, at this point, have no right to tell me what I can and cannot do. I will do exactly what I want to do.
You sound like you're very much your own person. Are you now in the position where you do not have to bow to any pressure from anybody, like record company, or...?
No, I bow to many pressures from record companies and many pressures from other people, but there is one thing that I hold strong, and that is my own essence. And that is my own thing that I have to give to the people that I write for, because my first love is my writing. And obviously my first love has taken away the fact that I've never been married, that I've never had children, that I do not have a life outside of this life.
You really feel that you've sacrificed marriage and children for your career?
I have. Absolutely.
Could you not think you could have managed all of it?
Try managing a career with Fleetwood Mac and a career, a full-on solo career with yourself. I go home tomorrow. I am sure, I would bet you $1 million that by Friday I will be in the studio with Fleetwood. I would bet you that before next Thursday, when my album party playback satellite thing goes on, that I will have been in the studio with them for 4 days. And I've been doing this solid for 3 weeks. You know, to Rome, to the Netherlands, to England, back here to do these things, photo sessions, interviews, magazine things, journalistic things, everything you can possibly do. But yet, I'm going home tomorrow, and I would bet you $1 million that by Friday night, I'll be back in the studio with Fleetwood Mac.
Is that because they've asked you to already?
That's not because they asked me, that's because they expect me.
No day off?
No day off.
It must have crossed your mind that after all that solo success, you could actually leave Fleetwood Mac now.
How could I?
I don't know.
It would be like saying to your parents, I simply can't see you anymore. They are way too important to me, each one. You know, Christine is probably my dearest and oldest friend. John McVie, you know, I mean, they're all dear to me. Mick is the figurehead, he's the king. The two new people in Fleetwood Mac, Billy and Rick Vito, are like, they have become dear friends of mine. They come and spend time with me up at my house. We have worked together alone, without the rest of Fleetwood Mac. This is a very special thing, something that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world.
All that time ago when you joined Fleetwood Mac, did you think that you'd have this incredible longevity of success?
No.
Let's talk about this album, this very, very pretty album. Is that a good or a bad word to use, do you think?
I think it's a very beautiful word to use. It is pretty. It wasn't meant to be pretty. Actually, in all honesty, it's probably the most honest, and I'm very honest, too honest. My mother says too honest sometimes. I tell the truth a little bit with too much, what's the word, fever.
How does that get you into trouble then?
Because I actually will tell you exactly the truth. And sometimes people that are very close to me will say, you could have told the truth without quite telling so much. Because if I'm not my own person, then I can't really be me then. If I'm going to try to be somebody else, or if I'm going to try to emulate somebody else, or if I'm going to try to, like you said, to be, you know, I can't be Mae West, I can't be Janis Joplin, I can't be those people. What I can do is take little bits from them, and I can try to use them in not a way where I feel like I'm copying anybody, because I'm not a person to copy anyone, and I'm not a person to try, you know, so that I would walk out and you would say, well, you know, you really look just like Grace Slick. And I would say, well, I look nothing like Grace Slick. You're absolutely crazy. I happen to love Grace. She happens to be a very good friend of mine, but I'm nothing like her, even though she's absolutely marvelous. I am not like her, and I'm not trying to be like her. But yet, in the very beginning of my rock and roll days, Grace was somebody that I absolutely adored, and thought, you know, as she coolly walked across the stage in her, you know, high heels and chiffon dresses, I said, well, I would really love to be something like Grace Slick. But at the same time, I never wanted to be her. The same way I never wanted to be Janis Joplin. Janis was absolutely outrageous, notorious. I can never be Janis Joplin. But what I can do is I can watch her and I can see how she holds that audience in her hands. I can watch her and I can understand what kind of philosophy she has. We don't need another Janis Joplin.
Well, there never will be, will there?
There will never be another one.
No, never. I mean, at the same time, there'll never be another Stevie Nicks. There will never be another, you know, anybody who's achieved what you have. It's because of your individuality, yeah?
Well, no. There probably will not ever be anybody else that's quite as nuts as me.
Rooms on Fire. Tell me what it's about.
Rooms on Fire is about me. Rooms on Fire is about a girl who is a rock and roll star, who has pretty much accepted the fact that she will never, ever be able to be married or have those children that she wanted, or that husband that she wanted, or that deep, deep love that she wanted, and she's accepted it. And then one night at one of those everlasting parties that we all have to go to that we don't really want to go to, and we go and make an appearance and leave as quickly as possible, a man comes into the room, and there is a certain sort of a, see, I don't see very well, so I have a sixth sense that there's an eye contact thing that even though I can't see him very well, I feel something, and I close my eyes for a second, and he walks over to me, and I look up, and he's there, and he asked me to dance, and we end up getting married, and I end up having a little baby girl, and we lived together for 20 25 years. And the sad thing is that I waited for him all my life, and then he dies before me. And I wait for him for the rest of my life. And he comes back after I'm very, very old and gets me and takes me with him back to wherever he comes from.
How often does it happen that the man comes into the room?
Very, very seldom. So it is a dream. And it is something that, of course, in my heart, I hope will happen. As the years go by, it becomes less and less a possibility. And it has become a problem in my life 100 times, that there's somebody that, yes, you really like, and that they really like you, but at some point, they say to you, I cannot deal with your entourage, with all the people surrounding you, with all the times that you have to leave. I will not be left for 4 months. It is very hard to be the one that is left. And it's hard to be the one that leaves, too, but it's much harder to be the one that stands in the driveway going, I'll see you in 4 to 6 months. And to drag him out on the road is like pride killing. It's not good for a man's pride. And I learned that a long time ago. You don't drag a man around. You know, either you have such a solid relationship that he can stay home and do what he does, and that he can understand what you do. But this takes a saint. This takes a very saint-like man.
Not many saints about.
Very few. I mean, I couldn't take it.
So why should anyone else?
So why should anybody else? I mean, it does get to the point where someone finally says to you, I really love you, and I would love to spend the rest of my life with you, and I would love to have, you know, 2 or 3 children with you, and I would love for you to be the mother of my children, and I would love for all these things to happen. But the fact is, Stevie, it will never happen, because you are always going to be on call to your work until that specific man walks into your life, liking rooms on fire, that you are willing to give up at least 50% of what you do.
And would you?
If I met the right man, absolutely.
I do hope it happens.
Well, I would just have to be very, very much in love with him. And then it would, see, then I could go to Fleetwood Mac and say, I want to be married, and I want to have a baby, and I want a life. And how could they possibly say to me, no, you can't have that? They would never say that to me, because they do, deep down in their hearts, love me very much. And in my own life, in my own solo career, if I went and said, I'm going to stay with Fleetwood Mac, but I'm going to give up my solo career because I want to be married and I want to have a child, how could they say to me, no, you can't do that? It's the one reason, it's the one thing that I could ever say to all parts of my life where they would have to say, in that case, then we set you free.
Stevie, I hope you find him. Thank you very much.
I hope I find him too, and thank you.